All right. Let's see what's happening here. Get these controls to move. I don't like this here either. All right, so today's lesson, we're going to talk about intervals, which is the distance between two notes. You can play them, depending on the instrument, you could play these two notes together or you can play them one after the other. But the distance between them, as far as frequency, when they're played together or in succession, is called an interval. So we have the minor second, minor third, major third, perfect fourth, the augmented fourth, perfect fifth, minor sixth, minor seventh, major seventh, and the perfect octave. There are other ways to say some of these intervals listed above, depending on how they're written in music, using diminished or augmented terms, and we'll explain that later. So, let's go ahead and take a few notes here. So I think importantly, to start with, we want to think about that piano. So here is our piano. And I've always thought that drawing a piano is really a great tool because you can visualize better. So there's that C, D, E, F, A, B, and C. There's our octave. And there's that C sharp or D flat, D sharp or E flat. There's no black key between here. This is just a half step, just like that's a half step, so is that. F sharp or G flat, G sharp or A flat, A sharp or B flat, and that's it. Okay, so if we start thinking about whole steps and half steps, or the distance between these keys, this is a half step. Anytime you go up one key, that's a half step. That's a half step. D to D sharp's a half step. E to F is a half step. If we think about whole steps, we got to skip a key. So C to D is a whole step. This is not a whole step. That's a half step. So E to the black key, F sharp, is called a whole step. Okay? Those are important concepts to think about first when you first start thinking about intervals. So back over here, when we talked about the minor second, major second, minor third, major third, perfect fourth, augmented fourth, and then the perfect fifth. Well, let's go ahead and start with just these intervals, and then we'll add the rest. So if we start on C and we go up a half step, C to C sharp or C to D flat, that would technically be called a minor second because we're going up a half step. Now, let's go ahead and switch letters each time for right now. So a good example would be C up to D flat. That's a half step, so it's a minor second. If we go C up to D, that's a whole step. So I'm going to put that little sign there, that little square that's representing a whole step. C to D, I'll try to clean this up a little bit for you, is a major second. Now let's go ahead over here and just do other minor seconds and major seconds. So another minor second would be G up to A flat. That's a half step, which is another name for saying minor second, another way of saying it. B to C is a half step or a minor second. Now you can get into some confusion if you said, for example, A to A sharp, right? A to A sharp, well, that's technically a half step up too. But since you're using the same letter twice, that's where things can get a little sticky sometimes. So thinking of, for example, if you went up an octave, A to A sharp above, that would still be considered an octave, but it would be an augmented octave because it's still the A to A. That's a little confusing, but let's stay away from that at the moment. So major second, C to D, another one, G to A to B, B to C sharp. Over here, E to F sharp. Right? These are all major seconds, or what we call a whole step. Now let's move on to the minor third. The minor third, you have to, technically, you need to go and make sure that you're using 2 letters up, right? Because anytime we go from C to D, that's called a second, some sort of second. C to E is some sort of third, 1, 2, 3. Anytime you go from 1 letter up 2 letters, that's some sort of a third, right? That's why we have 2 different kinds of thirds here. So for example, C up to E flat, C, D, E flat, this would be considered a minor third. If we go from C to E natural, that's a major third. The definition of a minor third is a whole step plus a half step. A definition of a major third is 2 whole steps. Oh, it's a little hard to see, but okay. So C to E is a major third. D to F is not. D to F sharp is whole step, whole step. So another example for a major third would be D to F sharp. You'll notice that if you go from D to F, that's a minor third, whole step plus a half step. So D to F is a minor third. All right? Perfect fourth. Perfect fourth is 2 whole steps plus a half step. So for example, C up to F, whole step, half step. C to F is a perfect fourth. D to G is a perfect fourth. E to A is a perfect fourth. It's 2 whole steps plus a half. The augmented fourth is 3 whole steps. C to F sharp. D to G sharp. This is called the augmented fourth. And then here's where things get tricky again. If you said C to F sharp, that's technically an augmented fourth, right? Because we're going 1, 2, 3, 4. We're using the letter C and F. So that's the distance of a fourth, C, D, E, F. And then we're saying F sharp, so it's not perfect fourth, it's an augmented fourth. But if you called it G flat instead of F sharp in your mind, or if you saw it on paper, C to G flat, technically it would be referred to as a diminished fifth, because C, D, E, F, G, that's a fifth up, but we're playing a G flat, which is a little bit less, right? It's a half step lower. So that's called a diminished fifth. Audibly, though, C to F sharp and C to F sharp or C to G flat sounds exactly the same, but it's how it's written. So if it's written C to F sharp, that's called an augmented fourth. If it's written C to G flat, that would be considered a diminished fifth. That concept is what I was talking about when I opened up that first slide. And then finally, a perfect fifth, C to G, D to A. If we do some of the other flat ones, like for example, E flat to B flat, these are all perfect fifths. Now you say, well, why do they call them perfect? Well, because so they're some of the most pure intervals in music. Their frequencies fit together really well. And that's it. You know, we can keep going, but it's the same concept as you go up, all the way up to the perfect octave. Okay, just a basic interval study. I have to stop the recording would be a good idea.